Hi, this is Catherine. This is Taking Tea with Catherine. This is Prince of Wales tea, which is a pretty good black tea blend from Twinings. I don't think it's my favorite because, I don't know, it's just a good black tea. And I can enjoy it without milk. A lot of strong black teas I need milk with or want milk with. So it has that, but that's not why I picked it. I picked it because I'm doing a tag called the Book Postscript Tag 2021. And when I think of the word postscript, I always think of writing a letter and writing PS. And I thought, let me see if I could find a tea in my collection that has PS as their initials. I couldn't find any, but Prince of Wales starts with a P, ends with an S. Okay. A little bit of a stretch. Anyway, I was tagged by Jennifer Brooks. It seems the original tag was by Memento Mori in 2018. And in Jennifer's video, she tagged people in the beginning, so I'm going to do that. If you've been tagged already, well, you double tag, you know. And of course, if I didn't tag you, you can do it as well. I mean, I don't think you need my permission. So I tag Hannah's books, came at middle of the book March, and Marilyn Maya Mendoza, 3 wonderful booktubers. And so we're going to get started. There's a number of questions, prompts, whatever. The first one is the longest book you read this year and the book that took you the longest to finish. Now, obviously that could be the same thing, but it wasn't for me. It took me about 3 months to read the longest book, which was the Juliet Barker's Bronte biography, a wonderful book. And it was chunky. I don't know the exact amount of pages. It's hard to tell because there's so many notes at the end. So sometimes that's counted like in Goodreads. But it's over 1,000 pages. And, well, actually, no, the meat of the book, the actual biography is like over 900 pages, but still a big book. Anyway, that's what I said. These technicalities are always a little weird. And the book that took me the longest, I think, was the one that I started in October of 2020, read a few chapters and thought, this is a great book, but I have a lot of other books that I'm reading, so I'm going to pick it up in October 2021. Actually, I thought I'd pick it up sooner, but then I waited to 2021, which is no criticism, really, of how good this book actually is. It's just sometimes I do that. And that is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. So a year is a bit of a long time, but I'm finding a lot of books that I really love. I've done that where I've started it and left it for a while and then picked it up later. I did that with Tenant of Wildfell Hall, and that ends up being one of my favorite Bronte books. So, like I said, there's no judgment there on the book. Number 2, a book you read this year, by the way, we're still talking 2021, that was outside of your comfort zone. Now, this wasn't like intensely outside, but I have collected, I guess you could say, going to library book sales and other bookshops over the years, a number of classics in complete determination to read them all at some point. And quite a few of them I will have for like 10 years or so and not get to them. And again, doesn't mean that they're not good books. Maybe it just wasn't something I was in the mood for or whatever. And I found that I had, over the years, started a couple of Tolstoy novels, never finished them. But I felt bad that I never, to my knowledge, I could be wrong, but I don't remember having read any classic, as in 19th, early 20th century Russian novels. And so when there was a group read of Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, I joined in, and I actually ended up finishing earlier than I expected. It was in January, and it was one of those books where, it took a while to get started. My earrings are getting loose. I'm not an earring person. You can probably tell. I can't deal with them usually. Anyway, also not in my comfort zone apparently. But I have quite a few earrings, just like I have quite a few Russian novels. Anyway, and I liked it a lot. I'm not saying it was a cheerful book in any way, although it did have some funny bits. I just thought it was a fantastic book, and I'm so glad I read it. And now I'm looking forward to reading a lot more Russian novels. Obviously translated into English, but still pretty cool. Number 3 how many books did you reread? And I went back and counted. I knew I read more than usual, and it was 9. 9 out of, well, 86 or 87 books. I can't remember how many books I've read this year. If I finish any more, I could hit 90, but even so, almost, but not quite, a tenth of the books I read this year were rereads. How is that possible? Am I doing the math right? How is it possible? But I'm happy about that because I think that's a good balance, because there's a lot of books that I have here, or books that I check out the library, that I've never read. And so I want to get to them, of course, especially the ones I have here, because they're here looking at me, you know? But there's a lot of books that I've read and loved, and now they're also sitting here looking at me saying, remember me? Yes, my books talk to me. What can I say? Not really. But I do feel the reminder. I love being surrounded by books, but I also feel the reminder that some of them are just collecting dust, and I gotta get back to them. So having read 9 books as rereads this year is pretty pleasant to me. It's very reassuring that I'm balanced. I guess the word is balanced. A little bit, I guess. I don't know. Am I balanced? I'm talking to myself again. So number 4, favorite reread of this year. Now, this is not my favorite book of my rereads. Like, I reread 2 of my favorite books of all time this year, which were 84 Charing Cross Road, which I'm reading again in the next week. Yay! And also Persuasion, which is my favorite Jane Austen. And that was a reread. But I say this is my favorite just because it was the one I was surprisingly happy to find. What am I going to say? I was very happy to realize that on rereading it, it was still holding up for me, because that doesn't always happen. Usually when I reread a book, it is still somewhat good, but you just don't know what place you are at the time when you're reading something. And in the mid-90s, when I read this book, I didn't think I was going to. You know, I thought my mindset was a little bit different, and yet, guess what? I haven't changed that much, except I haven't gotten the nasty sticker completely off of this book still. I really got to work on that. Anyway, this is Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. What is Mansfield Park? I'm really thirsty. That's what it is. I'm parched. And yeah, I read this when I was in college, but not for college. It was a little distracting, actually. And I liked it. I liked the whole kind of underdog feeling of the story. Wasn't just about that, but there was a lot of relatable things about Fanny Price and everything. And I thought, well, am I going to like it the second time, or am I going to be annoyed by it? And there were parts of it that I wasn't that into, but it turns out that it still holds up for me, and I love that. So I have to just count that as my favorite, because it was my favorite experience of pleasantly being surprised in reading it, you know? Excuse me. Now, number 5 is a book you read for the first time that you look forward to rereading in the future. There were quite a few of them I could have counted in this, but I decided to pick Gaudy Night by Dorothy L. Sayers, because the mystery in this one is not like it's not really a murder mystery, but a lot of the pleasure of this book is just following the main character, Harriet Vane, in all around Oxford, and as she comes for this reunion kind of situation, kind of a reunion. Yeah, it's Gaudy Night, it's like an event, and then she stays and for a little while and helps figure out something that's been going on at the school, and then later on she's joined by Lord Peter Wimsey, who is the main person of the series. But it really was pretty great just to be in the story and in the experience of the school, and not every minute of it, but I said, well, if it weren't for the constantly wanting to see what happens next and try to figure out what's going on and who's responsible for the things that are going on, I would have, I would have slowed down maybe a little bit. I mean, I didn't read this too fast, but so I think this would be a nice book to reread and just kind of savor for the atmosphere, if that makes sense, right? All right. So number 6 is favorite single short story or novella that you read this year. And I don't know if I actually read any short stories. I feel like I must be forgetting something. Just like I know I read a couple of essays, but I just didn't read a whole book of essays. So it's possible that I did. But if so, I don't remember it. So, it didn't stick in my head. But I read a couple of books that I think could be counted as novellas, and that were really good. But the one that I think stuck with me the most, these are two books in one. So, and some stories. Well, I could have read stories here, but I did not. And that is Nella Larsen's Passing. So I read Quicksand last year and thought it was really good. And then I read Passing, which is a story of, well, really a story of two women, both of whom are black but could pass for white, one of whom actually does. And they kind of meet each other years later, and circumstances happen kind of as a result of that whole situation. And lives are disrupted, and it's a bit dramatic, but and psychological, I guess, but it was fascinating, and I do recommend it very much. And it is not the happiest thing I've ever read, but it was a good story, and it was well done in the space of time and pages that it was written in. So definitely very good. There were other ones that I think were novellas, but I'm not sure if they quite counted or if they were slightly too big to be called one. This one is definitely novella, so that helps in its favor as well. But it was really good. So the next one, number 7, is Mass Appeal, which is a book you liked and would recommend to a wide variety of readers. Now, I picked the one when I looked on Goodreads again. Don't like being too attached to Goodreads, but let's face it. And this was actually, in the stats or whatever, considered the most popular, the most read of all the books that I read this year so far, which is probably most of what I read this year. And excuse me, my allergies are really acting up today. And that is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, which is another mystery. And I thoroughly enjoyed this one. And I think most people would as well. It doesn't have Poirot or Miss Marple, but it's a standalone, yes, it's a standalone story. And it's a little bit of a thriller, and it's a little bit creepy in some bits, but it is just such a great story and well paced, and you really want to know what happens next. And I feel like it would still be enjoyable also on a reread, but there is something of a suspense in the story of what is happening, and all these people end up on this island basically, and then they realize that everybody's getting picked off, and who can you trust? It is just fantastic. So definitely I would recommend it, and I think that no one needs me to, just because everybody would like it. But then we have number 8, which is Specialized Appeal, a book you liked but would be hesitant to recommend to just anyone. There's a lot of books that I like that I think are kind of books that I like. Sometimes there's some biographies that I think other people might be into it, but this one definitely I feel like I would be not recommending it to everyone. Quite a few memoirs fall into that as well. But I just thought I'd pick one that I do actually recommend. I just don't know if everyone would respond to it. And that is Notebook by Tom Cox. He's written a number of other books on different subjects, but I got into him because he was writing kind of memoirs about his cats, which of course I loved, which were very funny. And actually over the years, all of his cats except for one has died. So now he has that one, and recently he adopted a new one, which is kind of nice. But this book isn't particularly about his cats. Actually, his most recent couple of books haven't been entirely about his cats, but they come in there every once in a while. He writes a lot of almost like, I don't know how to explain it, almost like walk with me and let's talk kind of feeling, almost. That's not what he says, but it has that thing, like where he's talking about family stories, he's talking about history of places he's at, a little bit of local lore, nature, music, that sort of thing. And it's humorous, but it's not like back to back laughs. It's stories and everything. But he has written fiction, but I think the ones I'm most into are his nonfiction. Well, apparently he usually keeps notes for these books in a notebook of some kind. If you've ever looked at his social media, he does mention his notebooks a lot. Like that's like, wow, the best thing to buy another notebook and to start a new notebook and all those kind of things, and which a lot of us find relatable. But in this case, apparently he had his notebook with him with all kinds of notes for his next book, and he lost it. And I don't know if it was stolen or if he lost it and never got it back. And that was a bit of a loss, but he seems to have taken a lot of other notes from different notebooks and onward and assembled them in this book. This is a lot slimmer than his other books were. There's a number of people who came out with books in recent times that were a little slimmer than their previous ones, and that's okay. Keeping it simple. I just thought it was generally funny. It would just go from one little bit to another, and sometimes it just seemed a bit random, but I thought it was really, a lot of times, really funny. I read it, I mentioned this earlier, of course, in the spring. I read it when around when my cat died, and that was not my favorite time in my life or in the year, but I remember having it with me in the following days. I had taken a day off shortly after she died and took the book with me on a day out, treating myself out in the city. The first time I'd been to a restaurant, I think, since COVID and everything, and that added to the enjoyment of the day. I'm pretty sure that's when I read it. Yes, no, that is. I always doubt myself at the last minute. So it is good, but I can tell that there would be certain people who would read it and go, all right, I mean, sure, it's good, but it's not my thing. So I still think it's worth a try, even if not everyone would be into it. Okay, so the next one, number 9, is reflect on your year as a bookish content creator. Goals met, good, bad memories, favorite videos you made, etc. I mean, I could go on, I guess. I don't know if I have favorite videos I made or just certain time periods I was really enjoy making videos. There were other times that I was feeling a little down or just not in the mood, and didn't make as many. But yeah, during the time, again, when my cat died, it was a little rough, but also during that time is when I hit the 1,000 subscriber mark, which I always say, oh, it's not about numbers, but I mean, I did want to make 1,000. Once I realized I could aspire to 1,000, which I know is not a lot in YouTube terms, even in BookTube terms, it's not a heck of a lot, but it was still pretty amazing. And I've had more since then, and thank you for any new subscribers and older subscribers, and if you're not a subscriber, of course, please subscribe. But I don't mind that it's not super, super fast. I also made 2 years on BookTube, and so that was, and those things happened around the same time, so I was able to do a Q&A. I had fun doing Q&A. I would like to, I don't know, I would like to in a way I don't want to, because I'm either partially lazy or just blocked or something. When it comes to video editing, I just let things get in my way. For instance, I film on a phone, and for better or worse, I think it's not that bad, but it's a little rough for me to figure out how to upload. Not that I can't figure it out, but to upload it onto a laptop and do editing there, or should I do editing on the phone using some kind of app? But which app? So I go through this every few months where I just decide to try, and then I just get frustrated. So I feel like it's my fault. I also think that my normal format of the videos I like to make, yeah, sometimes I could chop a few things down, but I generally this is my format, sitting in front of my books in my library with a cup of tea and talking. And that is what I like. But I wouldn't mind doing something resembling a vlog. Earlier in the year, I didn't really care as much because, again, wasn't really going out that much and it was a little depressing still. it's getting a little depressing again now because some of those places I like to go out to are like closing their indoor dining for a little while. I'm like, man, but you know, what can you do? It's the times we live in. But so I thought about making like vlogs in, you know, around about my neighborhood, the bookshops that I visit in the area, or when I go into the city, which is very often, maybe visiting bookshops there, going to tea places there, or other sites too. New York is an interesting place, I've heard. Um, so I wouldn't mind doing that, but I guess I'm not in such a rush to do that, but it would be kind of cool. And if this is more than a booktube goal, this is a Catherine goal. I would really like to be able to go back to London next year. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that we're going to try to make it happen, my travel companion and I, but I can't make promises. But if I do, wouldn't it be nice if I could cobble together a little bit of a video based on that trip? Right? Again, we'll see, but it's kind of hard. These kind of things are hard for me to do on my own just because, I don't know, it just is. So we'll see what happens. What else? Oh yeah, so I started a project which was both booktube-ish related, kind of, but just a reading goal project, which I thought would be something, you know, have no deadlines, just an ongoing thing that, I mean, anyone else who wants to do it could do it too, which is, I call it Poets and Pre-Raphaelites because it sounds a little bit Jane Austen to say that. And, well, it doesn't because she never heard of Pre-Raphaelites, but it is, you know, just, it encompasses a lot of my reading goals in one title, which is I like to read as much as possible about the Pre-Raphaelites themselves and about their influences and about who they influenced. And that encompasses art history, that includes history, that includes literature and the history of literature and poetry. So that's why I said poets, because they were really influenced by a lot of the poets that I'm interested in. And I just wanted to get more into poetry, and I got a little bit more this year. Didn't write that much, which is kind of frustrating. I wrote a little bit, but really not a lot. So it's been fun. You know, it's no like major progress made, just like gradual. It's basically just a title put to the things that I like to read about, but just giving it a little more purpose, I guess. Along with that, the goal of maybe reading more poetry, I decided to kind of join in on the Poetry Thursdays that had been starting. I don't know if it started this year or not, but I'd see more of it going toward the summer. And then I joined in during July because I thought I would do contemporary Jane Austen stuff. And then I carried on a little bit into August, I think. But as much as I like to say it's not about numbers, it was a little rough because I felt like those particular videos had the least amount of viewers, and you want to do things for your own enjoyment, but it's like if I want to do things for my enjoyment, I could just talk to myself. I don't have to make videos, So it kind of slowed me down on doing that. Not so much reading poems of my own, but just making special videos about specific poems. Plus, I'm still not sure if you can make, if on YouTube you can read a poem by someone who's like still alive. As far as, copyright, is that the word? Copyright laws and stuff. So, I don't know. It was just not horribly frustrating, but it was like, well, do I really want to keep going with this? So, yeah, there were some moments that they weren't bad, isn't actually bad, but just that made me think, okay, should I do this? Should I do a little more of this? So next year, I will continue with my little projects. I will continue reading poems. I will continue trying to come up with some new ideas here and there for videos and stuff. But I think in life, it's good to have as little pressure as possible because there's enough in this planet without adding more to it. So I'm just here to enjoy myself, and I hope you guys are too. And there is someone outside collecting bottles and cans. So, welcome to New York. See, I don't even need to go out in the street. You just have the ambiance here. It's fantastic, isn't it? So that's all for now. I hope you've enjoyed this tag. I did quite enjoy doing it myself. And this is Catherine taking tea with Catherine. Have a lovely tea and book-filled day. Bye.